marketers. Deborah Eckerling here.
And I'm Keith Smith, and we host the MPN Meta Marketing Show, which is not just another marketing podcast, but the marketing podcast about all the other marketing podcasts.
Podcasts are booming, right? We love them, and people actually listen. They don't scroll, they don't swipe. Well, except maybe during the ad breaks.
But here's the secret. With the Marketing Podcast Network, your ads don't make people hit skip. We put your brand on shows that people actually want to hear.
That's right. We match your message with podcasts that make marketing nerds like us perk up and take notes, or at least nod knowingly, pretending they understand.
And don't worry, because we'll deliver your ad naturally. People might even think that we love your brand personally, which of course we totally do, unless it's a veggie smoothie, then maybe not.
If you want your brand heard without making listeners roll their eyes,
Head to marketingpodcasts.net and catch marketing fans at work, rest, and play. Seriously, your audience is already listening. Make sure they hear your brand and not our awkward jokes.
join the conversation because good ads shouldn't just be tolerated, they should be enjoyed.
Yes!
You enjoy podcasts. We know because you're listening to one. Hi, I'm Jason Falls, the executive producer of the Marketing Podcast Network. We love podcasts too, so much so that in addition to providing you with the great episode you're listening to, we also help businesses, brands, and even individuals produce their podcasts. MPN Studios offers podcast consulting and production services to help you get you or your business its very own podcast. We've helped dozens of smart people, advertising agencies, and brands develop podcasts. All you do is record your content or interview. We take that and deliver a professionally produced audio or video episode complete with show notes, transcriptions, and even promotional clips to use on social media. And our monthly subscription prices are hard to beat. If you or your company are jonesing to have your own podcast to establish thought leadership, drive business leads, or just have fun talking about your business or topic of choice, we'd love to help. Learn more at marketingpodcasts.net/studio. That's marketingpodcasts.net/studio.
Welcome to Your Radiant Spirit, a space for the conversations and colors that help you see yourself more clearly. I'm Heather Eck, an intuitive artist and guide, and I believe your soul speaks in the ways the mind can't always put into words, through color, energy, and the stories your body holds. This show is where we explore those messages. Through personal stories, deep conversations, and creative insight, we'll uncover what's been hidden, release what no longer serves, and begin to imagine what's possible when you live in full alignment with who you're meant to be. What you hear here is more than inspiration, it's an opening, a chance to feel the shift that could change everything. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let's step into today's conversation. Before we begin today's episode, I want to offer a quick note for our listeners. In this conversation, my guest shares part of her life story that includes experiences with trauma, abuse, and violence. So these topics may feel heavy or triggering for some listeners. Please take care of yourself as you listen. You're always welcome to pause, step away, or return to the conversation when it feels right for you. While some of what you'll hear reflects the painful realities that many people carry, this episode is ultimately one of profound resilience, healing, and hope. It's a story about what it means to survive unimaginable circumstances and still choose a path of light, compassion, and purpose. So excited to introduce to you my guest today, Teri Wellbrock. Teri is the host of the internationally ranked Healing Place podcast, an audiobook narrator and producer, writer, speaker, and forgiveness mentor. She is incredible. After enduring significant trauma early in life and living for years with severe panic attacks and the effects of complex PTSD, Teri began a powerful healing journey in 2013 through EMDR therapy and other holistic practices. Today, she shares her story openly in the hope that others who feel trapped in darkness might begin to see a path toward healing. Through her podcast, her writing, and speaking, she radiates a message of courage, faith, and the possibility of transformation. This is a great conversation about facing the path, reclaiming your voice, and discovering that even after deep pain, a life filled with joy and meaning is still possible. Teri's energy is a lovely lavender gold. She is strongly connected to the divine. She is a resilient and beautiful spirit. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. Well, Teri, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Oh, Heather, I'm so thrilled to be with you. I love seeing your smiling face again. So,
Me too. It's so good to see you. It's been a while since I was on your show, the Healing Place podcast. So I appreciate you coming to be a guest on my baby podcast as we're getting started and moving into like regular releases and all that stuff. So thank you.
oh, I'm so honored. And again, I told you right before we hit record that I just think you as a host and your beautiful energy. Like the moment I met you, I was just like, oh my gosh, I love this lady. Like you just have a beautiful energy about you. And I I think you're creating here is just beautiful, and it's going to impact a lot of lives.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that so much, especially, like I was just saying, it's been a slow summer. So it's nice to hear those things. It's so encouraging. And I just love your work and your story too. I would love to share with the listeners. You describe yourself as a trauma warrior. What does that mean to you? And how did you get started in the work that you're doing today?
Oh, that's such a great question. So yeah, trauma warrior is like the first thing on my website. I went through horrific trauma in my childhood. I'm happy to share not graphic details, but just kind of highlight what I went through if you'd like. Um,
Sure.
and then stepped onto the healing path in
Hmm.
2013 after over 25 years battling panic attacks. And
Oh,
um, so what happened to me in my childhood, I called it, once I understood trauma and its impact, particularly ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences, stored negative energy. Like as a child, my body, my mind, my spirit didn't know how to process these horrors that were happening to me. And so I compartmentalized them and stored them in these little boxes. But it started to overflow and
mm,
came out as panic attacks. Um, and so I'll give a real brief explanation just so you can understand, listeners can understand. Um, when I was 4, an intoxicated parent attempted to drown me and my 1-year-old sister in a bathtub. When I was 5, I was sexually molested by a 16-year-old neighbor alongside my 5-year-old best friend. When I was 9, I was sexually molested by a 19-year-old neighbor. My mom had sent me to borrow a can of soup. Mom wasn't home, but the 19-year-old son was, and he made me earn it.
mm,
When I was 10, I thought I had that in the other room. When I was 10, I was um, sexually abused by my choir director. And during those first 10 years of life, my dad was also physically abusive. And so but when I was 10, he sat me on his lap and said, I've been doing therapy and I never should have hit you in anger because of my frustration with your mother's drinking. And so that was my first experience with forgiveness
mm.
and starting in a new path with my dad because he promised to never hit me again and he didn't. Um, and then when I was 14, I was sexually accosted by a religious education director I grew up Catholic. And so I worked in the evenings for the priests, answering phones and stuffing the church bulletins. And he trapped me in the basement of the rectory. When I was 16, lost my virginity to date rape. Later that same year, I was attacked by a gang of youth downtown Cincinnati with friends. Um, when I was 17, one of the police officers involved in that investigation asked my parents if he could take me to dinner to celebrate. We convicted 49 out of 50 of those gang members. Um, and they said, of course, he's a police officer, but he did not take me out to dinner. He took me back to his apartment where he attempted to rape me. When I was 21, I was involved in a bank robbery where a gun was held to my head and my coworker was stabbed 3 times with a hunting knife. They did not catch them. And 3 months later, they would return to the main office where I had just transferred. Only this time, the assailant who had held the gun to my head pulled the trigger and murdered my coworker, Marcia Berger. My sister had just asked to go on break. She was a teller and 19 years old. And the girl who was murdered had just taken my sister's place on the teller line. I ran from the back of the bank and came face to face with an armed assailant. But his gun misfired, and so my life was yet again spared. So that's my crazy first 22 years of life.
Oh my God,
That,
Terry.
yeah. And so again, I got married, I had kids, but I would wake up with these night terrors and these panic attacks, and I started to just really, really experience almost agoraphobia, afraid to leave the house, afraid to be at the grocery store, afraid of open spaces. Like there was so much going on because my body just, it didn't know what to do with all that. So 2013, I found my way. I decided I couldn't live like that anymore. Found my way to a therapist who, and she recommended, have you ever tried EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing? Big mouthful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started that therapy and unboxing all of that and processing that. And I no longer have panic attacks. So that's why I'm a trauma warrior.
Oh my gosh, no kidding. I mean, one of the you think of one of the things that you mentioned and you wonder how that person, went on to live their life, and then to hear everything that you've been through is just, I can't imagine that you're sitting in front of me today, the person that you are, because that is a testament to your strength and also like your purpose, and the work that you're doing now and how you have been able to heal and move on to help other people heal too. That's incredible. Absolutely
Thank you so
incredible.
much. Yeah, I didn't understand for a long time. People would ask me, you radiate joy. You're always smiling. How like it's so hard to believe your story. How'd you do it? And I always was like, I don't even know, the grace of God. Like I don't know.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I understood resilience, and I took there's an ACEs questionnaire where you can figure out what your ACE score is for, again, those adverse childhood experiences. But then there's also the resilience questionnaire.
Mm.
And I score really high on the resilience because I had a grandmother in my life who is very loving and kind. And she was, quote unquote, our babysitter, as my
Hmm.
parents would work. Um, so I had spent a lot of time with her. I called her my second mommy. Like
Oh.
she was such an angel. She was an earth angel. Um, and she was also very spiritual. So I think that connection with God, like she was, again, very Catholic. So praying her rosaries and, always talking about Jesus and God. And, um, so, and I had a best friend, and her parents, I spent so much time at their house, spending the night trying to get away from my environment. And her parents were just the most loving, kind, just gentle people. And so it really helped me build up my resistance, my resilience, I guess resistance in a way to what was
Yeah.
happening. Um, and so I had, even though I was a very vulnerable child, because just because of all that was happening to me, I also had this strength about me. Um, and I just kept building that strength and building that strength. And to the point that eventually I started to speak up. I didn't tell anyone about the sexual abuse that was happening because I was too afraid. Um, but I did start to share. I had a nun, my fifth grade teacher was very psychologically abusive. And so I told my dad about it. And my dad went up and put the fear of God in her with me by his side. And I just remember thinking, oh, okay, it's okay to have a voice and to say no and stop. And so that was just a learning process for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, you endured all of that for 22 years. At some point, you had to have been sitting there going, why me? Why does this keep happening to me? I can't imagine what that was like for you, but you said it was 2013, and you said, okay, this is enough. I've got to go talk to somebody. And then from there, it sounds like they were able to use some tools to help get you out of that space. What was that process like for you? And how, I don't want to say how long, because do we ever really fully get over our trauma, but how long did it take for you to start to unpack and unearth and excavate all of those things? Because they happened to you when you were so young, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great question too. And I was in EMDR therapy for 4 years, which is a very long time for EMDR, but my case was also, there was just so much there. Um, I remember at one point saying to my therapist at the time, I feel like I don't know if you've ever seen Clark Griswold, Christmas Vacation, when the giant ball of Christmas lights and he's like, gives it to Ross and he's like, untangle it. And
Uh-huh.
that's what I felt like. Like I was looking at this giant ball of tangled Christmas lights and I was like, I don't even know where to start on this thing. Like what?
Yeah.
And so we just kind of dumped it all in the middle of the floor, so to speak, and just started going through it. And it was so fascinating to me because um I would leave sobbing, right?
Yeah.
But I kept going back. And the reason I kept going back was because I felt a little more relief each time, a little more
Mm.
hope each time that, oh, I don't have to live like this forever. Like it was starting to process, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember probably about 3 years in, and the one thing that kept tripping me up was the second bank robbery because I had to choose between death and death.
Mm.
The one armed assailant who had just murdered my coworker was in a wild, wild west shootout to my left with police officers. I had an assailant pointing a gun to me to my right. There was a house behind me. I was trying to become one with the house, so I couldn't go that way. And there was a highway with speeding trucks and cars and fences and brush, and there was no way to get through in front of me. So I had to choose between running towards death or death, like two gunmen. And so that's the one we kept going back to over and over and over and over again because I was stumbling. And so I'm sitting there again, about 3 years in, and all of a sudden I just start sobbing. And my therapist, Dr. Hensley, was like, what's happening? Where do you feel it in your body? What,
Mm-hmm.
on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? And I said, for the first time, and I might cry talking about it because it chokes me up every time. For the first time, I turned my head and I saw it through my own eyes. I was no longer dissociating. I was no longer seeing it as if I was watching a movie and this happened to somebody else. And I knew then I had made tremendous um, headway because I was able to stay in my body with all the scary feelings and all the uncomfortable sensations and be in it. And that's when I was like, okay, so I can still be in me and
Mm.
feel this and work through it and learn to work through it and learn to be with the sensations and then process it. So it was just a very profound aha moment for me.
Oh my goodness. I imagine that it was really difficult for you to even put yourself in that situation and see it through your own eyes, but then to be able to sort of work through it, it's like I've heard, and you can probably share more about this too, that when you experience trauma, it's sort of like parts of your spirit start to leave and you become sort of shattered and scattered. And you spend a great deal of your life then trying to call these pieces of yourself back. And that must have been a transformative moment for you to know that you were safe in your body while you were processing that in like real time
Yeah,
there too.
yeah, for sure. And what's fascinating to me is that my therapist had been trying to get me to do breath work, right? And four square breath or rolling breath and all these different. And I was just really, really struggling with the breath work component for calming myself. And I came to the realization that it was because I wasn't comfortable. Breath work required me to focus on being inside of me, like my breath, right?
Right.
And I was so terrified to be inside of me. Like I was always living outside of myself, really. And that was another aha moment where I was sitting, waiting to turn left, which always made me uncomfortable because cars flying this way, cars flying this way. And I felt very trapped. And it was, related to that second bank robbery. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do some breath work. I'm going to try to do this. And I like turned and looked, there was a little flower growing out of the crack in the cement on this road. And I was like, all right, we're going to do some mindfulness. And once I realized, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing the breath work. I'm okay to be in my body. Again, just such shifts started to occur in realizing it's okay. It's okay to be with the uncomfortable. And
Mm.
then I really started to make a lot of progress in working through all of it and being able to sit with it. Yeah. And I love what you just said about the soul parts, and bringing them back, the parts work. I had not heard that before. I mean, I've talked parts work before, uh, and heard about it and done some parts work myself, but the soul component, I just heard that in the last month. And
No
so
kidding.
I'm so no, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I heard it, I said, "Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, it's almost like you have to, like, little me had to just kind of like let go out here. Let's go live
Mm-hmm.
out here in this very safe place."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I haven't talked about this ever before, so I'm going to give you this little story. When we went back to my mom holding my sister and I under the water in the bathtub, my dad fortunately walked in and unfortunately hit her hard to get her to save us. But there was a lot of violence, sadly. But she's holding us under the water. And so we went back to that in EMDR. And I was watching from above the water. Like, I saw me and I saw my sister and I saw my mom. And then all of a sudden I said, "Oh, the birdies are taking me," because I was in this childlike mindset. And we lived in northern Kentucky, right across from downtown Cincinnati. And so we could see. And then suddenly I was like on a tricycle, like over the bridge, like I was way high. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if like I was dying or a part of me died." And so now I'm like, oh, that may have been a little soul part, right? That like
Mm.
disconnected and was like, "Nope, can't handle this. Like, this person that's supposed to be loving me and protecting me is now trying to kill me. Like,
Right.
what is going on?" So anyway, I was a
Wow.
rabbit hole moment.
No, I thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like that's an important like realization that you had, and the calling your spirit back, I believe is a shamanic practice. And I have friends who are practicing shamans who do that sort of work, and they can help you kind of go back to those moments in your time and call that shard of your spirit back in because it had to separate from you. And I wonder if that was you getting to see a visual of that happening where it
Yeah.
had to leave. And I mean, the fact that you're sitting here in front of me right now telling me these things, to me, I would think you called your spirit back so long ago so that you could do all the work that you're doing today, because you are truly, I think, we talked about this before we got on too. There's so much darkness in the world that you have to look for the light in places. And you have said that your purpose is to shine the light of hope into those dark spaces. And that's the work that you do now. So, can you tell us about, I mean, you've got your own podcast, which is incredible. You've written books and you do your own healing work. Tell us now how that healing that you did then helped you then be able to step into a place where you're now a lighthouse for other people, and you're holding your hand out to other people to tell them that healing is possible.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And I went back to college to get a degree in psychology, after I was in my late 20s, early 30s, because I was so fascinated. Like, why, how did I live through all that? Two, how am I not an alcoholic like my mother? Like, why didn't
Mm-hmm.
I do drugs? And what my coping skills are so much different than what she was doing. Um, and my mom was a banker, and she had been through two bank robberies. So I was fascinated by the human psyche. So I went back,
Mm-hmm.
got my degree in psychology, um, and then ended up working with kids, again when I lived in Cincinnati, in a mental health agency. And it was funny because I was then in my 40s and befriended I might have even been 50. I befriended a therapist who was in her late 20s, and it was like instant soul sister connection. So we had so much fun together, and we just laughed and just had fun. Um, and so we had gone out to dinner, and she said, "Teri, we totally need to start a podcast." And I said, "Awesome. What's a podcast?" Had no idea. I was like, I don't even know. Like, I've never even listened to one. And so we did. She was in the first 10 episodes with me, but then she got a job at Children's Hospital in Cincinnati. And anyway, she had to step away because she was just had way too much going on. And so I said, you know what? I really think that this is my soul work. Like, I just felt called to start to give voice, like bring people on who were doing healing work and start to share it. And then somebody said to me, a couple of people said to me, listeners and guests, "You have such a great voice. You should do audiobooks." And so I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, let me look at audiobooks." And then I became an audiobook narrator, mostly in the healing arena. Like the majority of mine are in the healing arena. And I love that idea again of giving voice to these books, these beautiful, creations by other people. And then all of a sudden I started getting invitations. "Hey, do you want to write a chapter for this, book we're doing?" And hey, and so now I'm releasing a spiritual book, Mary Magdalene, the Magdalene Oracle. I've done a children's book as a co-author. It hit #1 on Amazon. And so it was just like everything started to unfold, and all of these gifts started to present themselves to me. And then I realized, oh, okay, like this is my soul work. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Is I've made it through the darkness into the light. That doesn't mean I don't have struggles and things don't happen, but I'm very well armed with coping skills and things, modalities that I can utilize, and very knowledgeable because I've done a lot of research and interviewed a lot of experts. So yeah, that's the way it unfolded. I call them, one, I call them angel whispers of, like, "Hey, check this out." And then an opportunity would come along. And so it just, I just opened myself up and just started saying yes to these beautiful opportunities that were being presented to me.
I love that. I love that. I think
Thanks.
that's healing in and of itself, right? Where you can kind of say, "Okay, God, I'm open. You put me here. You carried me through those hard times." And I think we all have a big purpose in the world that we're meant to do while we're here. And so you've talked about too your own your spirituality and your faith being a big part of your healing as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how that spiritual life has helped you through some of the hardest moments that you've had?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that opportunity. Growing up Catholic, again, my dad was a Jesuit brother for 8 years, so he was in the seminary for 8 years. My mom wanted to be a nun, but they wouldn't let her in because she partied too much, um, which is true. And and again, just as a little side note, really quick. So my mom and I went on a beautiful, beautiful forgiveness and healing journey together in her
Oh, wow.
last few years of life. She could quit drinking at 82 and stayed sober for 2.5 years, which was miraculous in and of itself. So I always say it's never too late, like to make amends, to make shifts, even when in your 80s.
Hmm.
So she became my best friend in the end, and the mom that I had needed my whole life. I mean,
Oh.
as a little girl. And so that was my little sidetrack. So my faith, my mom was very like went to daily mass and said her rosaries, and like she was very much a person of faith. She was an angel on earth who would give her last dollar to a stranger if they needed it. She just happened to have this horror of addiction
Mm.
on her back, and she just couldn't shake it until again she started to do her own childhood healing work in her 80s. But so my faith, obviously I was abused by a choir director. I was abused by a religious education director. I realized my relationship with God and my faith, the faith and the community that I had, with my faith, the Catholic Church, was more important to me than what these people had done, these men had done to me as a child. And so once I started to do that healing work, and I started to write letters of forgiveness to my perpetrators,
Wow.
for my own sake. It, I mean, I let's take James Mills, the man who had held the gun to my head and then ended up pulling the trigger and murdering Marsha Berger. When I wrote his letter of forgiveness, I came to this realization that he and I were both born these little innocent creatures, right? These little beings of light, right? We're just these little babies that come out. And somewhere along his journey, I don't know if he was abused, neglected, and I'm not making excuses for his behavior, but somewhere he chose to go down this dark path. And I got in his way. Like, he didn't wake up one day and go, I think I'm going to, ruin Teri Wellbrock's life. I just happened to get it. I was in his very destructive path. Like, I was just happened to be on it. And he plowed me over. And so once I came to that realization that I could forgive him light to light, soul to soul, and not forget the human choices he had made that were very dark and evil, but forgive him on a soul level, it shifted everything for me as far as being able to move beyond that weight that I was carrying of whatever it was, anger, towards these perpetrators. Again, not making excuses for their behavior, but being able to let them go and let that go. So that's the biggest part of my faith, and how forgiveness was very important for me along my own healing journey.
I love that you share that because I think the idea of forgiveness is something that's so challenging for people, um, to find a place of forgiveness for ourselves and what we go through in life, but to find a place of forgiveness for somebody that put you through that kind of hell is like, what's, I'm trying to think of, it's like a truly spiritual act to be able to find that place of forgiveness for somebody. Um, I imagine that that was not an easy thing for you to sit down and write those letters. But I
Yeah.
also imagine you didn't want to have to sit with that feeling on your heart anymore either.
Yeah, and it's true. And in those letters, I expressed a lot. Like, and I never sent them. I burned them. Like,
Right.
sent that negative energy out into the universe. Um, but and interesting, someone had told me, light it, and if it doesn't whoosh away in one swoosh, then you have more to write.
You
And I
have
found
more
that
to
to be
do.
the
Yeah.
case. Yeah. And so I would just keep writing and keep writing and keep writing. And it took a while for some of them. And I'd be like, all right. And finally it was like, whoosh, okay. All right. I got it all out.
Wow.
But I mean, these letters weren't all about, oh, I forgive you for
I
what you've
forgive
done. It
you.
was
Yeah.
like, you for, like it was, I
Mm-hmm.
let the anger out. I let all the things out, like, how could you do this to a kid? How could you do the, and so, um, yeah, it was very therapeutic. It was just, I just found the release of all the things, all of the feelings, to be incredibly therapeutic. As a matter of fact, I'm creating a course. I'm in the middle of it right now on forgiveness. As
Mm.
if I don't have enough on my plate. I was like, oh yeah, let's do that.
But that's amazing. I think that's one of the biggest spiritual gifts that we can give one another is forgiveness. It's like acceptance, and love. I love that your podcast is called the healing place, because I think it's a space where we can you go to listen to hear more about the things that are available to help us heal. But I also love that you've got your newsletter. I think it's called the Hope for Healing newsletter.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and that word hope is such a powerful thing. I told you I'm a Bible nerd. I love to read the Bible. I love to understand the messages in it. And I feel like there are so many things where it's like destruction. The prophets are saying all these terrible things are going to happen, but they almost always end with hope. And I'd love to know, like, what does hope look like for you now? And how do you help others to cultivate hope through your work?
Yeah, thank you. And hope has been the underlying theme of everything I've done because I truly was hopeless at one point
Mm,
because I thought I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life and have panic attacks and struggle. And I didn't know that there was hope. I didn't know that there was a way out of it. And so once I realized, oh my gosh, wait a minute, there's so much we can do. Then I just started to become this sponge, right? Like if it came across my radar, I was trying it. Ho'oponopono Hawaiian healing prayer. Love it. Love it. Use it
hmm.
often because it's a forgiveness prayer, right?
Yeah.
Coming back to forgiveness. Mindfulness and somatic work and tapping, EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. Oh my gosh, you name it. I was trying it, meditation, yoga, like
Yeah.
because to me that's where the hope lies in being able again to bring so many beautiful guests such as yourself. I mean, utilizing art for healing is such a gift. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, but being able to welcome beautiful guests who are doing soulful healing work, to me that was shining that light of hope
Mm.
into people's lives. And again, my show, um well, I would start to see, like, I would go on and check my stats and stuff, and then it was like, it's been downloaded in 144 countries, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy to think like in my top 10 is like, the UK, Canada, Australia, the United States, but then like Turkey was in my top 10 for a while, and I'm like, that's so cool to think like people in Turkey, it's I've never been to, I could maybe kind of locate it on a map, are tuning in to listen to me and my thoughts, but also these amazing guests who are doing beautiful healing work. Like, talk about hope.
Hmm.
It's just beautiful to me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. For somebody who's listening now who feels stuck in that place of trauma or fear, what would you say to them in this moment, heart to heart? Like, what would you tell them?
Well, first off, my heart hugs yours. Like if you're listening to this and you're hurting, the other thing is hashtag never give up. I tell
Mm,
folks all the time, don't give up. There is hope. And the other thing that I wanted to say that popped out of my brain that I don't
your
remember, it
whisper.
was so important. It was there and then it went away. But yeah, I mean, um, try something. W- Oh, that was it. There it is. It's not a trauma race. So people hear my story and they say, "Oh my gosh, like I only had this happen." And I'm like, it's not an only had. That if you have had experienced trauma, if you have had pain, hurt is hurt, pain is pain, heartache is heartache. It's not like who has more. Um, Mine is just as an example of, you can survive a lot and still live a life filled with joy and peace, even in the midst of chaos. Like I had a horrible incident happen when we moved to Hilton Head Island. It was a dream come true, and it brought me to my knees. But I was able to work through it because I had learned so much about healing,
Wow.
that I was able to get myself and then still be able to be at peace and still be able to experience joy even whilst trying to pull myself through all of this. Um, So that I would say, start searching, try one thing. If it doesn't work, it's okay. You're building your coping skills toolbox. And so if you start building that toolbox, that thing you try that you're like, it didn't really do anything for me. You never know that maybe later down the road, when you're more ready for it, like me with breath work, you can go back and say, oh, I remember I tried that thing, right? That yoga,
Yeah.
that mindfulness, whatever it is. I'm going to give it another whirl. And then it's like, oh, this is really clicking. Now I get it. But
Yeah.
just keep trying the things until you find what gives you a little bit of relief, and then add something else, and then add something else. And then you're going to find that you're going to all of a sudden be stepping out of that darkness. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Terry. I so loved talking to you and hearing your story. And thank you for your vulnerability and sharing everything that you shared today too. Um, you really have, I think you've left the listeners with a strong sense of hope and positivity, and you definitely are shining the light in those dark places for all of us. So thank you for the work that you do, and for being here, not just on the show, but just for being here in general. You are a light. So thank you for that. Where can our listeners find you online, and how can they connect with you?
Well, thanks. And you made my heart smile. And so I'm giving you a big hug. Yeah. So probably the best place is my website, which is teriwellbrock.com. It's got all the things. So there's like tabs. You can put podcasts and books and blog and all the stuff. The Healing Place podcast you can find on all the places, Spotify and Apple and Amazon Music. I go to Pandora, like I listen to Pandora a lot, and then I'll be like, oh, and it recommends the Healing Place podcast to me. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. There I am.
That's so cool. I
And
love
you can
that.
tell, like, what's really cool, and I don't know if yours is set up like this yet, but I'm sure it will be. Like, you can say, and I don't want to say it too loud because she'll start playing it. You can be like, hey, Google,
Oh,
play
yeah.
the Healing Place podcast. And then all of a sudden, it like starts playing, and I'm like, that is so cool. Like our Google Nest. I know. I love it.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool. Well,
And
Terry,
my
thank
Facebook page has gone like crazy viral. I have like 24,000 followers on it now.
Oh my
In the
gosh.
last couple of weeks, it's like thousands. And I just try to put out like inspirational memes every now and then. So yeah, if you want some inspirational memes, pop onto my Facebook page. So there you go.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'll put all this information in the show notes. Go listen to Terry's podcast. It's amazing. And I'll link the episode that I was in with you too, so we can
Oh
share that
yeah,
one
yeah,
out again.
yeah. Yeah.
Because that was such a great conversation. And thank you again for having me on your wonderful show as well. I'm so happy to have met you and to be able to connect with you in this life. It's a gift to me. Thank you.
Oh, I feel the exact same, Heather. I just again think you're just such a beautiful soul. You're a light worker. So talented. Oh my gosh, your artwork, like just again, I don't have my sister painted that angel for me right there.
I was looking
Um,
at that.
sh-
It's so beautiful.
oh yeah, and you can't see it, but the wings are painted in gold flecked paint, so it sparkles in the sunshine. But I'm so like I just am so blown away by her talent, and then again, if I drew a stick figure, you'd be like, oh honey, what is that? It's
We
like,
all have our gifts, right?
right. Do not have it in that arena.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Your Radiant Spirit. Every conversation here is an invitation to go beyond the surface, to listen to what your soul has been whispering, and to step into the life you've been longing for. If you're ready to go deeper, to work in a way that's personal, creative, and profoundly transformative, you'll find ways to connect with me in the show notes. Whether it's through art, a guided session, or a fully immersive journey, you'll discover a space where your truth is seen and your next chapter begins. If this episode spoke to you, it would mean the world if you shared it with a friend, left a review, or subscribed so more people can discover the conversations we have here. Until next time, my friend, keep noticing the colors, the moments, and the nudges. They're all leading you home. And for now, take a breath, hold on to what resonated, and carry it with you into the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Heather Eck hosts an amazing show called Your Radiant Spirit. Heather, tell listeners about the show.
What if the colors you're drawn to, the creative urges you ignore, and the quiet intuitive hits you brush off are actually trying to tell you something? Your Radiant Spirit is the podcast that helps you listen and live with greater clarity and purpose.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find and subscribe at heathereck.com/yourradiantspirit on marketingpodcast.net or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.